2, 1. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. I am King Williams. I am your host of the Neighborhood Watch podcast, as well as my own podcast, the King Williams podcast. I am here talking to Mr. Elliot Karp, and help me if I got the name wrong, okay? So he's with Hillel?
Correct, Hillel.
Hillel of Georgia. And he's going to talk to me about what they're doing, and more importantly, like many people I've been interviewing in Atlanta, how have they had to change their mission statement and their organization in the face of COVID-19? So Elliot, before we even start, just who are you and how would people know you or the work that you've done?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to join you on your podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I commend you for the podcast that you've done. It's a great service to our broader Atlanta community. I am recently been appointed the CEO of Hillel of Georgia, and Hillel, the great rabbi in Jewish history who is known for many important sayings and values. Among them, he taught us not only to be for ourselves, but to be for others. And if not now, when, is really the rationale why Hillel has existed. We are the Jewish community on campus for Jewish students, for Jewish life and living, meaning the celebration of our Shabbat, our Sabbath, our Jewish holidays, our culture, our history. And we provide students with a variety of programs, activities, and opportunities to connect with one another. But we also really emphasize social justice, community service, leadership development, not only within the Jewish community, but the community at large. In Judaism, we have a principle known as tikkun olam in Hebrew, and in English it means repair the world. And the Bible is very specific, at least it's certainly in the Old Testament where this comes from. It does not say repair the Jewish world, it says repair the world. And so as Jews, we feel an obligation that it's a commandment, it's a good deed, it's a mitzvah, as we call it, to help repair the world. And we believe that the Jewish community is only as strong as the community around us, and therefore we have a stake in the broader community. So it's a very important foundation upon which our Hillel program exists. So that's what we do. We operate on all of the university college campuses in the greater Atlanta and broader Georgia community, Emory, University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw, Georgia State, and a host of smaller colleges as well. So that's who we are, and that's what I do.
Okay. And how long have you been, okay, this is going to be a silly question. I'm going to ask you, Elliot. So are you a rabbi now?
No, okay. not by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
Although many years ago, I actually studied to become a rabbi, but I'm not a rabbi.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask that to make sure.
No problem. I have been very fortunate and privileged for my entire professional career to have worked professionally in the Jewish community, leading nonprofit organizations like Hillel. And I've done it in a number of communities from Columbus, Ohio, and Cincinnati to Philadelphia, Las Vegas, and Miami. I am really pleased to have been given the opportunity to head up Hillel of Georgia. I've only been on the job since officially April 1st of this year.
Wow, not even 30 days yet.
We're not even 30 days, and not even in Atlanta, because I am still in my home in Cincinnati, where I'm speaking.
Oh, wow.
And doing what everybody else is doing, and that's working remotely, and taking lots of calls and lots of video conference calls. And to answer your question about what we have been doing since COVID-19 and the pandemic, all of our activities at Hillel that once were on campus, meeting with students and all of the programmatics, have literally pivoted and gone online. We have not lost a beat. We have not lost a step. And if anything, quite honestly, I think we're probably busier now because the online platform is very convenient for folks, and they're eager to remain connected to the community while sheltering in place. So our offerings include everything from Bible sessions, Torah sessions, to yoga, to wellness, to book clubs, to simply, hookups and coffee chats just to stay connected. We have observed the Passover holiday by providing an online Seder for our students that wherever they are, whether they're still in Atlanta, none of them are in dormitories, obviously, but in their apartments, or even if they're back home with their families, they have logged in and tuned in to all of our programming and activities. So we have been very, very busy.
Okay, I got to ask, because I don't know what this is. I've heard that word before. What is the Seder?
So the holiday of Passover, which marks the exodus from Egypt of the Israelites when Moses led them out of bondage to freedom, is commemorated in the springtime. And the Seder is our festive Passover meal in which we tell the story of the exodus of Egypt from our enslavement to our freedom. And it's a very joyous meal that has a lot of symbols associated with it. So it's Seder in Hebrew literally means order. And so the Seder is the order of the service that we follow at that meal. And it includes prayers, it includes stories, it includes commemorating the plagues in Egypt. And it's very much oriented towards our children. It's an opportunity to teach our children. So children are thoroughly engaged in it. One of the most beautiful parts of the Seder is what we call the 4 questions. And it always is asked by the youngest person at the Seder table, one of the children. And it's the 4 questions. Why is this night different from all other nights? Because it's the Passover Seder. And whoever responds to the questions, the 4 questions, that's how we lead into the storytelling. So eventually we do get to the meal, okay? Food's very important in every faith and every culture, and certainly Jewish faith it is. But before you get to the meal, there's a little bit of storytelling, a little bit of prayers, a lot of singing, and a very festive. We invite family, friends. There is a saying in the Seder, "Let all who are hungry come eat." We are commanded during Passover, to make sure that those who don't have a place to go are invited into a Seder table. And that's one of the reasons why during COVID-19, even though we couldn't gather at our Marcus Hillel Center, which is pictured behind me at Emory University, where we normally would have had probably well over 100 students participate in a Seder, we made sure that we gave them a virtual online opportunity to connect with us.
Oh, okay. And actually, that's pretty good, because I was going to ask the next one, how you kind of walked into the next question, which is how has your organization really just been, I didn't know you were even in Cincinnati, but how have you been like just working with people in Atlanta during this time of like downtime for everyone?
Well, like I said, everything we're doing is pivoted to online platforms. So we are busier than ever with these activities. Our staff that work on our various campuses with students are constantly spending their time during the day checking in with students, making sure that they're okay. We're very concerned with everyone's welfare and well-being. We provided assistance to some students that required it. If they needed financial assistance to get home when the shelter-in-place order was given. Some students, as I said, did not go home. They're living in apartments, but some of them wanted kosher food for Passover, special Passover food, and we made sure that we provided them with that food. And as I said, we're checking in with them. We want to remain engaged with our students to make sure that they're okay. And we are preparing right now, God willing, everyone will be back in one shape or form this fall. We're not sure what that means yet, but when they do, we want to make sure that we're prepared for everyone's welfare, everyone's well-being, their mental health well-being. We're going to be very attentive. This is obviously a very stressful time, emotionally, psychologically. Many of our students and their families have been harshly affected by the economic downturn. So we're getting ready to be able to respond and provide them, if not direct resources, at least the referrals that they'll need to help them during this time. So that's on one level.
Mhm.
On the other level, I am amazed. We hear stories every day. Our students are doing amazing things. They're volunteering at food pantries. They're delivering meals to senior adults. They are sewing at home and putting together face masks so that people have them. Some students have taken part in what is now a very common practice of porch step photographs of families, and providing it with them. So, our students, while they're sheltering in place, are still very much connected to the community and the idea of service. And the last thing that I'll mention is we have been looking into where some of our alumni are. We call them our Hillel heroes. These are recent graduates in the last year or two or three, some of whom are the first responders. They're the doctors, they're the nurses, they're the paramedics. They're on the front lines, and we're beginning to get stories that we're publishing on our web page and our blog of what it's like for them to be battling on the front lines of the pandemic, and to hear them reflect not only on the work that they're doing now, but it was the fact that at Hillel, they learned the values of service and giving back to the community and caring for others and being compassionate. Only bolsters our efforts today with the current generation of students.
Actually, I like that. That's really good to hear that you guys are doing a lot right now. And one of the things I want to ask you too is that how has it been for you having to manage all the things in two different states and really two different cities? And how has that been just on you personally?
Well, look, it's very challenging times. It's different, but it's also exciting because I have the privilege of working with some remarkable colleagues and professionals who are on our team at Hillel, and our student leaders and our board of volunteers who are all passionately dedicated. So the fact that we're operating in somewhat uncharted waters is a challenge, but I have great people around me, and they make it easy. The one thing I think we all have noticed is we're all at home, so we have plenty of time. So, I find that I'm putting in 10, 12, and 14-hour days, and it's one video call and one conference call after another because people want to remain connected and they have time. If I called someone up and said, "Hey, I'd like to get together with you," usually the answer before was, "Yeah, let's get together for lunch. How's 2 or 3 weeks from now?" Now the answer is, "Hey, what are you doing in an hour? Let's talk." So we're really busy, but I'm really proud of the way we've stepped up to respond to this crisis.
Right. And one thing I want to ask in particular is that I know you guys are doing a lot of good work. Have you thought, or has anything about the mission ever changed, or is it just like the mission stays the same no matter if we're online or in different cities? Has the mission remained the same?
It's a really great question, and I think that we are remaining true to our mission of providing connections to our students, caring for them and providing for them a warm and welcoming and safe home, Jewish home on campus, even if that home right now is a virtual home. So I think we are being true to our mission. But I also believe that we're starting to look at what the pandemic means to us now and in the near future, and how do we realign our mission and our programs to meet the emerging needs. And I'll give you but 2 examples that we're talking about presently. We don't have the plans yet, but at least we're talking about it. Number one is as I mentioned, we've always been concerned about the well-being and the welfare of our students. But against the backdrop of COVID-19, what new steps do we have to take to create more programs and activities that are dealing with wellness and mental health? So we're looking at that very seriously. The other thing, which has not traditionally been in our wheelhouse, if you will, is the economic downturn is going to create challenges for this generation of students in terms of employment once they graduate. And we're beginning to talk about how, as Hillel, we can assist students in their career development. We don't want to replace university counseling, career counseling services. We want to supplement them. But how can we, as a Jewish community, help our students prepare for careers, perhaps mentorships, internships, resume building skills, interview skills, and even networking them in their particular fields so that we can help them find jobs. It's going to be a very challenging job market in the next year and beyond. And so in that respect, I think we're starting to look at our mission and say, is this something that maybe we should be paying more attention to in the near term?
Okay. And one thing I want to ask, this is kind of a segue. It's into something a little bit more challenging. This was before COVID-19. And I'd be interested to hear what your response is. It seems over the last couple of years, there's been a rise in anti-Semitism from not just people saying things on campus to, unfortunately, people actually doing things in the real world. And how has Hillel kind of addressed that?
It's a really astute observation, and the reality is, unfortunately, that there has been a precipitous rise in anti-Semitism, not only on college campuses and even on some of our campuses, but around the country and indeed around the world. But I also have to put it into a context for you, and that context is there is a significant rise overall in bigotry and hatred and prejudice. So while we're very concerned about anti-Semitism, as I said, and what I mentioned earlier is that as a Jewish community, we're vitally concerned about the broader community. And there's a lot of parallels that hatred and bigotry and prejudice all have their roots in fear of the other, fear of what's different from what you are. And our society, unfortunately, has become very polarized. And the result of that is increased anti-Semitism, increased bigotry, hatred. It affects our students. Quite honestly, I think this is a generation that is suffering from the rise in anti-Semitism in ways that my generation and the last two generations of students never had to worry. There's fear of outwardly expressing your Jewish identity on campuses. So it's even more important for Hillel, our program, to provide a warm, safe, nurturing environment that allows Jewish students to be proud of who they are, what their faith is, what their culture is, what their people are, what their history is. And at the same time, we're working very, very hard with university administrations and with other faith groups and faith communities and ethnic communities across the campus to make them aware not only of anti-Semitism, but in terms of facing and fighting any form of bigotry and hatred. But you're right to say that we're all vitally concerned about this, and it all has to do with education and awareness. I mean, we can address anti-Semitism when it raises its ugly head, and we know how to deal with it, and we do deal with it very effectively. But if we really want to solve the problem of anti-Semitism, it's not solving an incident when it happens. The way to solve anti-Semitism is to create awareness and education and understanding before an incident. So that's why I'm proud of the things that we do with all of our campus interfaith centers, with the other religious groups, in terms of creating an environment of understanding and respect and dialogue, so that we can avoid or at least mitigate against when there is hatred and bigotry or anti-Semitism on a campus. It's not just the Jewish community that's responding. It's an entire community that's responding and say, we will not stand for anti-Semitism. We won't stand for racism on campus. We won't stand for any form of hatred on campus. So education and building strong alliances is vital.
Okay, and speaking to that, what does a strong alliance look like right now in the COVID-19 era between like the faiths?
again, it's perhaps a little bit too soon for me to specifically comment, across the campuses. I've already had, in a very short period of time, several conversations with the deans of religious life at the various campuses and student life. I'm impressed that there is enough awareness to say that we need to provide that education, and we need to rally around one another if any of us ever suffer from any form of hatred. I'm confident that we can accomplish the bigger goal of education awareness, because I think there's already a commitment towards it. And I'm comforted by the fact that because of that, if there's an incident, then we're prepared to respond to it collectively with our friends in other communities.
Okay. And so I'm glad that you said that, because despite that there's such a rise in just like really awful things online and in real life, there seems to be a bigger response of people who want to help or to bridge that gap, like you mentioned. And if somebody wants to necessarily bridge that gap with Hillel, how would they go about doing that?
All they have to do is contact us. We're open for collaborative programming and cooperative programming. We extend our hand to anyone that wants to learn more about the Jewish community, the Jewish faith, the Jewish religion. We want our students to be exposed to them, to other religions as well. The notion of I believe that this Friday there's going to be I just received word, a interfaith vigil online, okay, from Emory University, involving all religious faith groups to provide comfort and support to the victims of COVID-19, and to pay tribute and offer thanks to our doctors, our nurses, and everyone else that's serving us at this point in time. So, we're eager to welcome anyone that wants to come and open up a line of dialogue and discussion, or doing things jointly together. We have a wonderful program called the Maccabee Task Force on each of our campuses, where we recruit student leaders, both Jewish and non-Jewish, to engage in a year-long course of study about Israel and the Middle East that culminates in a trip to Israel for them, in which we not only present Israel's history, but we also spend a great deal of time understanding the cause of the Palestinian people and their necessity to establish a democratic and just state that will live in coexistence with the Jewish state of Israel. So, we're always eager to explore opportunities of dialogue with different faiths and different ethnic groups, because that's how we're going to foster better understanding and awareness of each other.
Okay. And just wrapping up, is there anything you want people to know about Hillel of Georgia that's coming up, or things that you guys are already doing that people should know about?
Everything's, as I said, everything's online. We have a website, hillelsofgeorgia.org. We're on all different forms of social media. You just got to, put that into your search engine, Hillels of Georgia. You'll see, the wide range of classes and programs and activities. I think the most important thing that we want is for everyone to remain safe and healthy, and hopefully we get back to more normal times where we can enjoy one another's company, not over the internet like this, but where we can sit opposite one another.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Elliot.
My pleasure. Thank you again.
All right. And once again, thank you guys for tuning into the Neighborhood Watch. If you haven't already, please subscribe to wherever you heard this podcast at. You can always make sure you check out all the latest episodes on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. As for me, you can always reach out to me on all social media channels at I am King Williams. Again, at I am King Williams. Or if you want to reach out to the podcast directly, it is Watch the Hood on all social media platforms as well, at Watch the Hood. Once again, thank you, Elliot Karp from Hillel of Georgia, for talking to me today. And once again, you guys, it's a lot of things going on in the world, but let's really think about each other, love each other, and take care of each other. And thank you once again. Tune in tomorrow. Thank you so much, Elliot.